12,000 years ago, North America was ruled by a predator so massive it would tower over any grizzly alive today, 12 feet tall and over a ton, built not to climb trees but to run down wild horses. Its DNA, impossibly, connects it to a harmless vegetarian from the jungles of South America. The latest science now reveals that this giant was not just a scavenger, it was a hyper-carnivore, devouring more meat than any predator on record. But how did this nightmare beast rise, and why did it vanish forever? This is the story that rewrites everything you thought you knew about prehistoric domination. Step into the shadow of Arctodus simus, and the numbers alone are enough to make the ground feel unsteady. This bear stood as tall as a basketball hoop when it rose up, stretching nearly 12 feet from claw to crown. Its bulk pushed the scales past 2,000 pounds, more than a grand piano, more than a modern bison. Even the largest grizzly, a beast in its own right, would have looked up at Arctodus and found itself dwarfed. The museum mounts tell part of the story, a skeleton looming over visitors, skull wide and blunt, jaws thick as a sledgehammer. The snout, short and broad, gave the bear a bulldog's profile, nothing like the sloping faces seen in living bears. This was a skull built for power, with deep muscle scars etched into the bone where jaw muscles once anchored, ready to clamp down with force enough to crack bone and tear through hide. The teeth themselves were shearing blades, designed not for grinding roots but for slicing through flesh and splitting marrow. One curator, standing beside the massive skull, once said, "You can't prepare yourself for the scale until you are standing right underneath it. It is the only time I have ever felt small in a museum." Every measurement, every angle, speaks to a predator that ruled by size alone. This was not just the largest bear ever to walk North America, it was the largest mammalian carnivore the continent has ever known. The sheer mass of Arctodus was more than spectacle. It was a constant hunger, a need for calories that would shape every moment of its existence. The giant, short-faced bear was not just a mountain of muscle. Its limbs told a different story, one built for speed, not brute force. Where modern bears shuffle with heavy, pigeon-toed steps, Arctodus walked with toes pointed straight ahead, each stride longer and more purposeful. The legs were oddly slender, stretched out beneath a compact torso, giving it a silhouette more like a wolf or a camel than any bear alive today. Fossil measurements show femurs and tibias lengthened well beyond what its massive frame would suggest. The result was a body that could cover ground at a pace no other bear could match. Biomechanical models point to a gait called pacing, where legs on the same side move together, minimizing side-to-side sway and allowing for bursts of speed. This is the same efficient stride seen in camels crossing deserts or wolves chasing prey for miles. For Arctodus, that meant it could break into a sprint topping 40 miles per hour, faster than a racehorse and far beyond the reach of any human or megafauna trying to flee. Its plantigrade feet, flat and wide, gripped the earth with every step, trading climbing and digging for pure forward momentum. There was no safety in open ground. Once the bear locked onto a target, distance offered little hope. Escape was a myth. The only thing that could outlast this predator was luck, or a landscape with nowhere left to run. Beneath all that size, the real terror was in the legs, a monster that did not just hunt, but chased, and almost always caught up. Inside a quiet lab, a sliver of ancient bone undergoes a test that will end decades of argument. For years, paleontologists argued over the true nature of Arctodus simus. Was it a scavenger, a thief, or a relentless hunter? The answer comes not from the shape of its jaws, but from the chemistry locked inside its skeleton. A specialist in stable isotopes drills into the fossil, extracting a sample of collagen for analysis. The process is exact. Acid baths strip away minerals, leaving behind the protein matrix that once fueled the bear's massive muscles. In a mass spectrometer, the sample is vaporized, its molecules separated by weight. The machine searches for one thing: nitrogen-15. This heavy isotope accumulates in the bodies of animals that eat meat, rising higher with every step up the food chain. The verdict is unmistakable. The nitrogen-15 levels in Arctodus bones are not just high, they are extreme, higher than any other predator tested from the Ice Age. On the trophic ladder, this bear stands at the very top. Only a diet of almost pure flesh could create such a signature. To keep its bulk alive, Arctodus needed to consume up to 35 pounds of meat every single day. That is the caloric demand of a nightmare. The isotope specialist reviewing the results remarks, "This is not a bear that could survive on berries and roots. The chemistry is clear. This animal was a hypercarnivore, and nothing else in its world came close." The debate is over. The bones themselves have spoken, and what they reveal is a hunger that could never be satisfied by anything but flesh. A single strand of ancient DNA, teased from the fossilized bone of Arctodus simus, has upended everything paleontologists thought they knew about the giant short-faced bear. When researchers sequenced its mitochondrial genome, the results defied all logic. The closest living relative of this Ice Age monster is not the grizzly, not the polar bear, but the spectacled bear, a small, mostly vegetarian species wandering the cloud forests of the Andes. The contrast is almost comical. One is a gentle forager weighing less than 300 pounds, the other a carnivorous titan that once ruled the northern wilds. The genetic split traces back nearly 5 million years, to a time when North America and South America were first joined by the Panamanian land bridge. From a common ancestor, evolution spun off two extremes. In the north, a predator so specialized it could only survive in a world of giants. In the south, a bear that learned to thrive on fruit and leaves. Paleogeneticists, still reeling from the results, describe the relationship as a kind of evolutionary whiplash. One expert said it was like finding out a house cat is the closest cousin to a Bengal tiger. The DNA does not just redraw the family tree. It forces scientists to rethink how these bears spread and adapted, and ultimately how the northern lineage became trapped by its own specialization. While the spectacled bear endured, Arctodus grew ever more dependent on flesh and size, a path that left it vulnerable as the Ice Age ended. The impossible DNA link is not just a curiosity. It is a warning about the razor edge between survival and extinction. Clovis hunters moved through the ice-shadowed grasslands, their kills never truly their own. The giant short-faced bear with a nose engineered for distance could catch the scent of blood from miles away. There was no hiding from a predator that stood 12 feet tall when upright and outweighed a bison. Archaeological maps reveal an uneasy overlap. Human camps and bear fossils pressed into the same ancient soils, both drawn by the promise of meat. When mammoth or horse fell to stone spear points, it was not the end of the hunt. It was the start of a race. The bear needed 30 pounds of flesh each day, and its arrival meant terror. Massive jaws and a towering frame could scatter wolves, but it was the living that felt the worst fear. For the first Americans, every meal risked becoming a dinner bell for a nightmare they could not fight, only flee. The last days of Arctodus simus played out on an emptying stage. As the Ice Age faded, the herds that once fed the giant bear, mammoths, horses, and bison grew scarce. The land itself was changing. Grasslands were shrinking, forests were creeping back, and with every shift, the bear's world grew smaller. For a creature built to chase giants, the loss of prey was a death sentence. Even a single bear needed up to 35 pounds of meat each day. Across the continent, their numbers were always thin, never thriving, only enduring. When human hunters added pressure and outcompeted the bear for the last of the megafauna, there was no margin left. The giant short-faced bear vanished around 11,000 years ago, too large and too specialized to find a foothold in a world that no longer matched its needs. A museum curator standing beneath the bear's towering skeleton once whispered, "This is what happens when evolution bets everything on a single card and the deck gets reshuffled." ancient DNA still holds secrets that rewrite what we think we know. As genetic technology advances, the line between legend and reality grows thinner. The monsters of prehistory remind us, nature's extremes can vanish overnight, while their echoes shape the world we inherit. What would we do if giants returned?